Hello, everybody. Help me welcome on Jeff T. Bowles today. I have a big smile because this guy's hilarious. Wait till you hear him. Like he is hilarious. Jeff, you're hilarious, and I I'm from Ireland, so we like to joke a lot. And I just every one of your conversations that I listen to, I just laugh. Just so this is going to be a great talk.
What do you
I
mean I'm hilarious?
just
Are you are you making fun of me?
No, you're genuinely
No,
hilarious.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I was like, so Carol introduced me to your work a while ago, and then I just got sucked down that metaphorical rabbit hole, and we've conversed back and forth a little bit, and you agreed to be on the podcast, so thank you. We're going to have quite the conversation now. It's going to be interesting where this goes.
Well, yeah, and I checked out your videos, and just the first one I saw was that Georgie Dinkoff, and I'm like, wow, that guy's a black belt in biochem. So I mean, I don't learn things that deeply. I'm a more of a big picture guy. But as a kid, I had ADD, and I think most scientists, when they're kids, they have autism. But because I mean, they're hyper focused. That's what autistic kids are. They can like be watching TV and you say something to them, they can't even hear you. But kids with ADD, they got like a wide angle lens on their face. So I'm kind of like a scientist with ADD, which is not normal. So I'm a big picture guy. And Georgie Dinkoff is, man, he knows everything about biochem. So that was a great podcast, by the way. So
There's two of
didn't mean
them,
to.
by the way. I'll send you the other one if you didn't get it. But I actually think you're like Georgie 2.0, and that's not flattery. Of everyone that I interview, you have a lot of similarities. So,
Well, I do. My way of researching is basically like, for example, I brag in one of my books, any disease can be cured in 30 minutes or 30 days. All the information is there in PubMed. No one's working the puzzle pieces. And, all these scientists, they focus on their tiny little area and churn out single puzzle pieces, every 5 years.
mhm.
And, you can't get paid for this, but I found that this one woman said, hey, would high dose vitamin D help my ALS? And I said, I don't know. Let me find out. I looked into it. I said, nah, probably not. And then I said, but you know what? Let me find a cure for you.
Mhm.
It should take me 30 minutes to 30 days. So I said, okay, I'm going to cure ALS.
Mhm.
So I used my system. Went into PubMed and I just typed in ALS and I had about 15,000 abstracts at that time, going all the way back to 1967. So I just started at abstract number one and read that. I go, abstract number two. So my plan was to read every abstract until I figured out a cure for ALS. And so basically, you start looking at all these abstracts, which are just summaries of big studies, and it's just a tiny little summary. A bunch of them are all the same, so you start going faster and faster, and then some of them are kind of interesting. They're kind of like puzzle pieces. They might be like the blue color, and you save the interesting ones, and you got the blue ones, and then the pictures with the puzzle pieces with clouds on them. They're kind of a group, and all of a sudden you start to see a pattern and all these. You save the interesting ones, and then every once in a while, like an amazing puzzle piece pops up that's really weird. You might not understand what it means. And in the case of ALS, this one puzzle piece popped up like, men get ALS 4 times higher rate than women, except around the age of 60, the ratio becomes 1 to 1. So men and women at age 60 get ALS at the same rate. I said, oh, that's a real interesting puzzle piece.
Mm.
Put that over there. Didn't think much about it. And then keep going. And then around 7,000 abstracts in, I see that same puzzle piece again. Oh, the ratio changes at age 60. I go, wait a minute. What happens to women at age 60?
Menopause.
Yeah, I said, "Oh my God, I've got it! There it is!" And then so
Bingo.
the progesterone crashes to zero, more than estrogen for women, and that's when their ALS rates go way up. I thought I'd solved ALS. It was 15 days in, so I said, "Yeah, I got a cure for you. I figured it out. It's caused by progesterone deficiency." So all you got to do is take progesterone, and it should cure you. Because and then about 9 months later, possibly some scientists saw this. Saw the I wrote a book about it. So maybe they saw the book, and they tested progesterone on a mouse model of ALS, and they found that yes, it did stop the progression of their symptoms, but only at the exact right dose. 2 milligrams per kilogram did not work. 8 milligrams per kilogram did not work. They had to tweak it just right at 4 milligrams per kilogram. And then they lived the equivalent of 17 to 20 human years longer than the rats that didn't get the right dose of progesterone.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I'd found the cure, but actually that was only half the problem. And then I got a whole nother, then people with ALS started writing me. And then this one guy, his name was Aiden Arpa, really smart guy, young guy, worked on Siri AI. He's a very athletic. I think he went to Harvard or something, and he was like on top of the world. Then he writes me, "I saw your book about the progesterone." And he goes, I'm just wondering if high dose vitamin D3 would help ALS. And I said, I don't know. It's a 50-50 thing. I said, you could try it and you'll find out. So he decided to take a real high dose of vitamin D3. And then he emailed me back. He's like, "Oh my God, you wouldn't believe it. My fasciculations, or basically my
Aches.
twitching."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He says it increased like 5 times, and both of my legs are going crazy. And before it was just in one leg. So I said, "Well, I wouldn't do that anymore if I were you." So we found out, but that was a huge clue, because at that point I hadn't written my book about D3 and the 5 cofactors. I hadn't done a deep dive on magnesium yet.
Yeah.
So I really couldn't tell him what was going on. Only later did I find out that high dose D3 just eats up your magnesium like crazy. And so what I figured out from his clue later, once I wrote that other book a couple years later, did the research for it, was what happened was that he took that high dose D3, it ate up his magnesium like a lot faster than normal. And that made me come to ask the question, is ALS caused by magnesium deficiency? And then I did a deep dive on that, and it turns out everyone that gets ALS, they've got all the symptoms ahead of time of magnesium deficiency before they get ALS. And then I argued with AI, and finally I convinced AI that there was about a 90% chance that ALS was caused by an undiagnosed magnesium deficiency. So my ALS book has the title has something like arguing with AI. I convinced it. And then we got this one guy to try the magnesium and the progesterone together. We call him Patient Zero. Mm-hmm. And he finally figured out the right dose for humans. Was kind of like, he fell down when he took too much, but when he took just the right amount, he said, "Oh, I can start lifting my arms higher again." Mm-hmm. And he figured out, in his case, it was 2 milligrams every 5 hours on your progesterone cream on your skin. Mm-hmm. Or he was taking it orally, he was taking 5 milligrams every 5 hours. So AI claims that's an equivalent amount of absorption. So I usually believe AI because I don't really know much about progesterone.
So was he also taking magnesium as well as progesterone?
Yeah. He went on high dose magnesium. Like, just, you got to take so much, you get diarrhea, and then back off to where that goes away, and they just have loose stools. That's the most you can absorb through your intestines, because it's very difficult to absorb much magnesium, and then through your blood. And that's why it takes like almost a year for people with magnesium deficiency to correct it, because it's just very hard. It takes a long time to get into your system. So he'd been taking about, probably 1,000 milligrams, maybe twice a day. He's been at it for about a month or two, and he was taking the progesterone, and he said that progesterone helped him move his arm a little. And then we made the mistake of giving him just a little D3, just because that can repair your nerves, but we know it's bad for you if you take too much. So I just said, try a little bit, like maybe 500 units a day. But so that didn't really do anything. He did that for a month. He's been on the progesterone and the magnesium for about 2 months. He's been on the little D3 for about a month. And then he wrote back, emailed me, he goes, "You wouldn't believe it. I had a little miracle yesterday." I go, what was that? And he's like, I can move my left hand again, and some of my fingers, and that's where the ALS started. And then we were like, wow. And then we thought, that made us think that the vitamin D3 was helping, but I think it actually happened in spite of the D3, because then we started boosting his D3 and it, just to see if it was helping. And he took 5,000, and then he said, "Oh, I had a terrible thing. I fell down and now I can't walk." Oh shit. So we're like, don't do that anymore.
That was
So
what
that's
you
the
were
bad thing.
referring. That was what you were referring to, Jeff, when you said if you take too much D3, it can be bad. You meant in the context of the beginning of ALS. You didn't mean for the general population, because someone's going to
Oh
take that
yeah,
up.
yeah, right. Oh, absolutely. I just mean it's bad for people with ALS, not for normal people.
Yeah.
But somehow it eats up their nerves are so magnesium deficient that eventually one of them just like self-destructs, and that gives off. So the ALS spreads from a single spot. You might get it in your wrist, and then it starts to spread to your forearm. It's not like occurring all at once. It just spreads little by little. And I figured out it's probably the magnesium deficient nerve gets so deficient that it finally just self-destructs, and then it releases like free radicals and other apoptosis signals, and then that gets onto the other nerves and then triggers them. It eventually triggers them to self-destruct. So that's why it's kind of like I liken it to basically a brush fire, like a lot of wood that's really dry. You just need that one spark of one magnesium deficient nerve to self-destruct, and then it just spreads. And so,
Does that
yeah,
mean
so
then,
basically,
does that mean though, Jeff, when we see the tables turn on ALS for women once they pass 60, that I would wonder if there's a big factor of that is the stress response, because you don't have progesterone protecting you anymore from the stress response. Most women don't take enough magnesium, if any, but then you've got that increased burn rate. So your burn rate for magnesium, whatever magnesium you might have in your body, goes through the roof, and then you don't have the protection of the progesterone, like I said. So I'd wonder if a big aspect of that is the overstimulation of a woman's stress response once she passes that kind of landmark in her lifespan.
that might be something going on. I haven't looked into it, the link between progesterone and magnesium, but I think Carol said there's some kind of link in our. We did a podcast, and she knew all about it. So somehow there's some kind of link between magnesium and progesterone. But the thing I found out about progesterone was that from I don't know. I was in my early days of research. I used to harass these famous doctors, and what was this guy's name? he's the big telomere guy. Michael
Oh,
Fossil. Have you heard of him?
yeah.
Yeah, he's got some books out. And I used to like email him, well, what about this? What about that? You know, I don't think you know what you're talking about. And I think he got irritated with me, and he said, oh, I've got someone that that wants to, you probably should email.
He
And
passed
he
you
emailed
off.
me. Yeah, he passed me off to this guy who was much worse than me and peppering me with emails. Turns out it's this guy who had lost half his brain when he got hit by a van,
Whoa.
and but he was still functioning. So I guess you can live with half a brain. And then but he kept telling me progesterone is the most neuroprotective substance known to man. You know, and he's like, I've been taking progesterone and it's been helping me. And I looked into it, and he was right. He was like, the women recover from brain injuries way better than men do because
Mm,
they have high progesterone levels.
yeah.
And then, so that's what I think's going on with the progesterone in ALS. That it's neuroprotective. It protects all the nerves. And then when that, so basically, I think of it as like a sprinkler system that's keeping those magnesium dried out nerves from catching on fire.
Mhm.
And when the progesterone finally goes down, there's nothing protecting those nerves so much anymore. And then that's when the fire can start. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I think the
So, but there's,
progesterone is also protecting whatever magnesium may be present because it's keeping the stress response somewhat under control.
yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a whole bunch of science I don't know about with that. Carol seems to be well versed in the magnesium progesterone connection.
Yeah.
Tell everyone to watch that podcast.
So,
Well, somehow
I
we got off on the ALS track. I don't know if that's what you wanted to talk about.
well, I was like, let's start with vitamin D and then we'll go into magnesium, but I guess we'll keep with magnesium and then go into vitamin D.
Well, okay.
So,
So yeah, so go on.
I was just going to say now with magnesium. I've done a couple of podcasts on magnesium, and I still think people underestimate the importance of magnesium, but also how much they actually need. And I take a lot of magnesium. I was listening to you earlier, actually, on another podcast, and I had a massive headache, and I was like, shit, I forgot. I should take my extra magnesium. So I've already taken like 600 milligrams so far today, and it's only 4 p.m.
Yeah, I didn't know I had a magnesium deficiency until I had like a frozen shoulder for a while. I couldn't lift it very high and was trying all sorts of things. It was after I'd been taking D3 for a long time, but not a lot of magnesium. And I was cruising through the internet and looked up this frozen shoulder, and this one guy's like, you can't fix a frozen shoulder without taking magnesium. I go, aha, I'm going to give that a shot. So for a whole year, I was just kept boosting my magnesium dose. I started off with 500 milligrams 2 times a day of extended release magnesium, and I did that for a few months. And then I boosted it up to 750 milligrams 2 times a day for another 3 months. And then I think I was about 8 or 9 months in, I started taking 1,000 milligrams 2 times a day. So that's a lot. And then after about a week or two of this, all of a sudden my heart started to feel funny, like it was
Mm.
sinking. And then I looked up what's the sign of too much magnesium, and that was one of the signs. I said, okay, I think I'm done filling the tank. And so I cut it back to 500 milligrams twice a day, and my heart situation was resolved immediately. And so
Because it
now I have
was
a full tank.
relaxing you too much.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, if you get a magnesium IV, which some of these ALS patients are doing, that really gets a lot more magnesium into your system, but it's dangerous because if you did it yourself, and it could stop your heart if you don't pull it out, at the right time. If you get too
Hmm.
much magnesium, so if you're going to do an IV, you have to have someone watching you.
Yeah.
But that's what the ALS patients are all doing now. It's like 3 times a week. And one guy's getting dramatic results. There's a Facebook group if you want to, anyone wants to check it out. It's called ALS Breakthrough. And it's got people, the patient number 1 is Tommy. And he was gone. He was like 100 pounds. He used to be a big guy. He's like wasting away, completely paralyzed. And then his wife saw my book and started giving him 1,000 a day, plus the progesterone. Within a month, she said he gained 30 pounds and started moving his left hand again, and he could swallow again. And then what else? And then later she noticed he was growing muscle, even though he wasn't moving his muscles.
Well, yeah.
And it turns out that the magnesium, I looked it up, and it's when nerves are repairing themselves or growing, they give off muscle growth factors.
Yeah.
So apparently the magnesium progesterone were causing his muscles to grow even without like lifting weights. So maybe it's
what else does that?
Bodybuilders can get off steroids and start taking progesterone.
You know what else does that stimulation of growth factor is molecular hydrogen, specifically the tablets, because they're bound in elemental magnesium as well. So that's interesting.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, I only looked up that one case because her physical therapist was like, I can't believe it. He's growing muscle in his legs and arms. And, they come in, they move their legs for them, and she couldn't believe he was growing muscle. But there's actually video of that guy at that Facebook group, if anyone's interested.
Yeah.
So, but as far as magnesium goes, yeah, it turns out about 80% of us are magnesium deficient. Everybody. I mean, the soils are so depleted, it should be against the law that there should be some kind of law where farmers have to put magnesium back in the soil, but they just like to put in fertilizers like nitrogen and potash to grow big fruits and vegetables. They grow really fast, but they don't have many nutrients.
Yeah.
They look nice and they can sell them and they're profitable, but there's much less nutritious food, even in the animal food, plants, vegetables, whatever, everything, all the magnesium is gone. You cannot get enough magnesium from the modern diet. It's almost impossible. So everyone has to supplement with magnesium, or else you're going to be subject to any of a long list of symptoms. Like the most common ones are muscle cramps, heart rhythm irregularities, anxiety, yeah, constipation, dizziness. And then in my book, which I don't know if you're going to put up on the screen or not, but there's a chapter on magnesium that's got like 3 pages of symptoms. Some of them are crazy. And in fact, one guy read my first vitamin D3 book, which didn't really talk much about magnesium. He left a review. He says, "Don't do this. This is crazy," because he took high doses of D3, and he says, "I was falling down and hallucinating. I had to close my business for a month. I went into the doctors, thought I had cancer, and I finally told them I'd been taking that high dose D3, and they said, stop doing that." And it turns out like that's an extreme magnesium deficiency. People actually can't walk. They fall down and they hallucinate. And then you can even die from it. But so yeah, that he found out. He didn't leave an email or anything. I tried to find out who it was, say, "Oh, sorry, you need to take magnesium too." But that's in my second book. That's in my next book. You should buy the next book.
My bad. Yeah.
So yeah, my bad. Sorry.
Well, you got to put some disclaimers in there, Jeff.
Yeah, I always thought that was for chickens, but I thought I'm not going to put a disclaimer. Another lady's like, "I took the D3 and this is horrible. I fell down at the bottom of the escalator. That was the first book that that hadn't fully studied the five cofactors.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the first book, I did go back and edit the first book. Say, I did say, warning, you need to take a lot of magnesium, and you need to read the second book.
Yeah.
Uh
Yeah.
oh. Oh,
So,
I might have hit something. Oh, there's
no,
your,
I
okay,
did
you're
it.
putting the,
Yeah.
oh, I thought you disappeared.
You know what
That's the
another,
ALS book.
yeah, so, and that has all the magnesium in it. Do you know
No,
another
no, no. That one is about magnesium, and it turns out magnesium probably is involved in Alzheimer's disease and definitely involved in Parkinson's disease. But that doesn't have the long. It might have the list of. Oh, I think that also has the list of symptoms.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. You're right.
And another one is that not many people know, and I'll ask regularly in consultations, is the eye twitching, where one of your eyelids will
Oh yeah,
twitch. And you think
yeah,
everybody
that's right.
can see it, but you're the only one that can see it.
Yeah, anything that's wrong with your nerves, and it even affects the nerves of your digestion. Like digestion is all run by nerves or controlled, and people don't think of digestive issues, but those could be magnesium also.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, that's the first book.
Yeah.
That one, that was written like 2010.
Number one
I didn't know
ebook
much.
bestseller.
Yeah, that's well, my marketing guy made that cover, but yeah, I didn't know that much. I just did an experiment on myself with not knowing too much. I said, I'm just going to take 20,000 a day because my dad I'd been taking 4,000 a day for 10 years, thinking that's 10 times the recommended dose of 400 IUs.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, that's a crazy amount. And for the 10 years I took that, I didn't get a single cold, and my bad shoulders, they quit clicking. But that was about it. And then my dad started taking, he didn't believe in vitamins. I finally convinced him to start taking some
He was a
D3. So he was
doctor,
taking,
right? Was he a doctor?
yeah, he's Stanford educated MD, didn't believe in vitamins. They all like, oh, it just gives you expensive urine.
Yeah.
And, he was a urologist, and he also, when I was a kid, he goes, he had testosterone. He goes, oh, I give it to these old guys. I don't think it works. It's just placebo. No, but it was testosterone. And he says, oh, yeah, those old men come back to me and they say, Doc, that stuff is great. My thing is so hard, a cat couldn't scratch it. And so but he always thought it was all in their heads. He always thought he called everyone like thought everyone was what's it called? It was all placebo effect.
Yeah, they were wrong. The medical book is right.
Yeah, yeah. And then so he was always a skeptic. I got him to take 2,000 IUs a day, and he had his blood tested. He goes, yeah, I got my blood test back, and my D3 level was like 29 nanograms per milliliter. And that's low. The reference range is 30 to 100. And even that's probably low or not right, but that's what they see in the normal population. And so I started thinking, wow, he's taking 2,000 a day, and it didn't boost his D3 level even into the normal range. I said, maybe we've got some kind of genetic problem.
Yeah.
So that's when I got the idea to take 20,000 a day to see what happens. My dad said, you're crazy. You're going to kill yourself. And I said, I'm going to see what happens. And then that was the 1 year, just taking 20 grand. All the doctors I knew said I was crazy. And then, I had all these things that I had for like 20 or more years. Like I had a hip click that was, you get from playing soccer, or like it's called dancer's hip. It's basically a bone spur on your hip. And then when your tendon goes over it, it clicks. So a lot of soccer players or karate people or dancers, it's called dancer's hip. I'd had it for 28 years. I had really hard, deep tissue massages. I looked up surgery. They want to cut your iliopsis tendon and loosen it so it doesn't snap. I said that didn't sound right, and it wasn't very successful. So I said, no, I'm not going to do that. But when I got into my 40s, the thing started to hurt, and I was limping, and it was getting, I'd have to stop and stretch, and it was getting worse. And but during that 1 year, when I started taking 20,000 a day, after it was about 4 weeks in, my hip just started killing me. Like, oh my God, I can't even walk. And I had to have a cane, and it got so bad that I had to stop the D3 for a while and take ibuprofen maybe for a week. But during all my reading of these abstracts about D3, I'd seen one that said vitamin D3 is known as the bone and joint remodeling hormone. And I said, oh, so I wasn't afraid of the pain. So I said, I'm going to power through this.
Yeah.
And so I kept taking, then I got back on the 20, and within 2 months, that hip click for 28 years was completely gone. And it's been gone ever since. So basically the D3 did successful surgery on me, where the doctors were going to do something stupid.
You have a
The
lot
doctor
of,
should have,
sorry,
go on.
I was going to say you have a lot of antidotes on how you've used D3 to heal yourself and even others. In your book, in the beginning, under Fact 5, you mention how people with aches and pains and arthritis and obesity have been generally found to be deficient in vitamin D. So, for those people, because I have a lot of listeners who can resonate with all of that, you said 20,000, which I'm sure people just fell off their chair when they heard you say that. But what is your general recommendation then for people who are struggling with these aches and pains, especially in the winter? Because I think I told you I'm up in Calgary now. It's like minus 15 Celsius today. Like it's freezing. So
Oh,
people with,
well, yeah. Yeah, if they're obese, I'd probably recommend 50,000 to 100,000.
and that's because, if I'm correct, the more body fat you have on you, the more you sequester the D into the fat cells. So you need even more.
Well, yeah, the current the mainstream old doctor's tale is, oh, vitamin D3 is fat soluble and it gets stored in your fat. But there's the best D3 researcher in the world is Dr. Bruce Hollis, and he looked into that. He says, no, the D3 is just it goes through your tissues equally. There's nothing special about fat. So that's a old doctor's tale. But if you're bigger, you do need more D3 just because you got more mass. It's like you need if you're twice as big, you need twice as much D3.
Because your metabolism is generally higher if you're carrying that extra
Well,
weight.
no, you need a certain amount of D3 for each pound of body weight,
Okay.
basically, or for how many cells you have.
Yeah.
So a 100-pound person taking 20,000 would be like a 200-pound person taking 40,000. But so then, so I thought 20,000 sounded like a lot, but then I started looking into it, and Michael Halleck was another vitamin D3 researcher. He kind of discovered D3, I think, or things about it. He didn't discover it itself, but he discovers all the molecular complexities about it. But he exposed people to, he called it one erythmal dose. It's just something he made up. It just means getting enough suntan, sitting out in the sun long enough so your skin just turns a little bit pink, and it lasts for 24 hours. That's the dose. And for most people, that would be like sitting in the sun maybe for a half hour.
Unless you're
strong sun.
Irish.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
so
like
that's,
5 minutes.
well, then he figured that is, then he measured the change in their D3 levels. He said that half hour in the sun made about 20,000 IUs of D3 in the skin. So these numbers sound big, but if you're talking about sunbathing for health, would you think sunbathing for a half hour sounded dangerous?
No.
So that's what people are worried about. 20,000. You say they should be going half hour of sunbathing. Oh no, that's crazy. But they've done their job. The people back in the doctors back in the 20s. This is a real scandal. They discovered vitamin D in the 20s. I think it was Casimir Funk is the name. Quite a interesting name, but they he's a funky man. But everyone started taking vitamin D, but they were taking like doses like 25 milligrams, 20 milligrams to 25 milligrams. And back then, nobody was magnesium deficient, probably because the soils still had plenty of magnesium. And they probably had lots of K2 in their system because they weren't feeding cows corn yet. Most of the dairy products and meat were from grass-fed cows, and they have a lot of K2 in them.
Yeah.
So they probably had sufficient magnesium and K2 back then. People were taking 1 million units a day. Oh, the 25 milligrams, turns out it's the doctors or big pharma said, oh, we can't, the hospitals are empty. Nobody's getting sick.
Yeah.
And so we got to do something about this. And I guess they went in the back room and I said, you know what? Let's say we're going to rename it 25 milligrams is going to be 1 million international units. And we're going to tell everyone, don't take more than 400 IUs a day because otherwise it's dangerous. And that's where the 400 IUs came from. And the 400 IUs a day, I looked up, where did that number come from? And that's just the smallest amount you have to give to a baby so they don't get rickets or bow legs. That's for 400 IUs a day. And so then they brainwashed all the doctors through med school that, anything over 400 is dangerous. And they still believe a lot of that stuff. And then, so there's a thing called the Institute of Medicine. In 1941, they put out the recommended daily allowance for D3 for everybody. It was 400 units. And it stayed that way. And the hospitals filled up again, obviously. That the reason they did is they were going to go out of business. And then all the hospitals filled up. And then in 1997, the IOM, the Institute of Medicine, met again, and they lowered the recommended dose to 200 IUs a day.
I'm so glad we have these. I'm so glad we have these people looking out for our health.
Yeah, that's criminally 400 is criminally low, but I guess they wanted more patients, so they dropped it to 200. And then that Michael Hollick started doing some research and saying, he's writing papers like this is way too low. And so they met again in 2011 and they boosted it up to 600 IUs a day. But two people sitting on that board, it's only 15 people. Two of them, one is Joanne Manson. She was a Harvard scientist. And the other was Clifford Rosen, who was a New England doctor. And they were on that panel that made the recommendations that no one should take more than 600 IUs a day. And where are they now? Right now, Joanne Manson is in charge of the huge vital study with 25,000 patients. They like big numbers because it makes it sound authoritative. But she's been giving all these people, without measuring their D3 levels before or after, no controls, but giving everyone 2,000 IUs a day and finding out, it doesn't work for this, it doesn't work for heart disease, it doesn't protect against this or that. So it's a study designed to fail and create misinformation. So she was on that committee that said no one should take more than 600 a day. Now she's giving people 2,000 a day and it's not helping for any diseases. And 2,000 a day is the same as sunbathing for maybe 3 minutes. So now where's Clifford Rosen? He is an editor at the New England Journal of Medicine. And what is he doing? He's writing articles. He just wrote a big article. Nobody should take vitamin D. It doesn't help for this. It doesn't help. Look at the vital study. It doesn't help for that. He's saying that no one needs to take vitamin D.
Mm.
I think those two people should be in jail.
Well, there's a long list
With
of
Dr.
people that
Fauci.
should be
With,
in jail. Yeah.
with Dr. Fauci.
Yeah. I have a list as well. I'll add to that.
But
It's
yeah, so
bizarre, isn't
that's
it?
what's going on. Yeah, so if the population found out that if our magnesium and K2 levels are high enough, we could be popping, 25 to 50,000 units a day of D3 with no problem. It would basically wipe out most of the healthcare system. I mean, it would get rid of all autoimmune diseases. It would prevent most cancers. There'd be like no heart disease. Like COVID never would have happened if they wouldn't even. They knew that D3 would stop COVID or prevent you from getting it, and they didn't tell because they don't want the secret getting out about D3. Because once it gets out, the whole medical industry is going to go down the tubes. Mm-hmm. So even they could have stopped COVID, just tell everyone to take D3, but no, they'd rather let the people die than let the secret get out. And they're still hiding this secret. They're trying to make us. I think RFK Jr. might be in on it because he has to know that D3 prevents autism. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just so obvious. And it's also the cause of the big obesity epidemic. Now they're throwing up the smoke screen of seed oils and processed foods. That's not it at all. It's vitamin D3 deficiency. And it's all started back in 1980 when the dermatologist started telling us to stay out of the sun and start using sunscreen. And that's what caused this huge chronic disease epidemic and the explosion in autism. I'm working on a book on this. I'm going to blow the whistle, see if it gets published. They might try to.
I hope I get a mention in that book. I got you started there.
Oh yeah, I'll have to say it all started when Shemaine had me. It started when I watched your podcast with Georgie. I wanted to disprove the PUFA, the seed oil hypothesis that's making us fat.
I wanted to ask you something there about the toxicity. So I have this client, and wonderful woman, and she's been doing great, but I've felt we've kind of had this speed bump slowing us down. And one thing I do with all of my clients is if it's the summer, I'll start them on 4,000 international units of vitamin D. But in the winter months, it's always either 8 to 10,000. That's where I keep my clients. And I've always done that. Even before reading your book, I think just intuitively I knew, looking at a few studies, I'd always seen that it was 10,000 to 15,000 seemed to be the sweet spot for inflammation. But this client, we had a conversation about getting her on vitamin D when we started working together. And she'd mentioned to me that a couple of years ago, she was tested for vitamin D, that the doctor had put her on vitamin D. And when they tested her, and I believe she was only on something low, like 2,000 international units or something. And the doctor tested her and it came back as 127 on the blood panel, of course, flagged high, got her to stop immediately. Oh my God, your D3 is dangerously high. So I was like, well, I don't personally believe that's high. So my next question is, do you remember how you felt when you were taking the vitamin D? Did you have any issues?
Great.
Any diarrhea? And she said she had maybe some stomach issues. So then I'm speaking to her and I'm like, were you on K2 at the time though? And she was 200 milligrams, I think, not a lot of magnesium. So what did your input on that?
Well, possibly there are cases where people, when they buy vitamin D3 supplements and they have them tested, that they're much higher doses than the pill says. Like if there's an error in manufacturing, because 2,000 IUs is not going to push someone's D3 up to 120. You'd have to have, I had to take 25,000 a day for 3 months to get my blood level up to 125. And we're talking nanograms per milliliter. The Europeans use it. Many Europeans use a different scale, nanomoles per liter. You have to multiply nanograms per milliliter times 2.5 to get the European measurement. So sometimes you got to be careful if you're talking about the same units. So I just threw that in there
Well, there was a
to
study a
make.
few years ago. I can't remember the title of it, but I remember hearing it about the efficacy of different supplements and how some supplements had 400% more of what they were claiming on the label in them, and then some supplements had less than 5% of what they were claiming on the label.
Yeah, so if she was taking 2,000 pills, they were probably 10,000 each or something. That would have gotten me up to about 125. So her pills were probably someone made a decimal point error in making her pills.
Maybe, yeah. But these
That,
symptoms she was experiencing, do you think it's because of the kickback from not having enough K2 and magnesium?
it would be what were her symptoms? Just stomach pain?
She had stomach issues. From what she can remember, it was a few years ago.
Well, a major symptom of magnesium deficiency is digestive issues. So she apparently that D3 was eating up her magnesium.
So how important is it though to take both K2 and magnesium if you're taking a lot of D3? Like I personally take, well, I take everything, but I take 10 to 15,000 international units of D3, which is a lot. I'm only small. I'm 5'5" and 140 pounds. So, and I notice when I drop that, I notice it in my mental health. I can feel the difference.
Yeah, well, it's weird because most of us are somewhat magnesium deficient. If you're really magnesium deficient and you start taking high dose D3, uh, you're going to get negative symptoms right away and take any of those symptoms on the 3-page list. But the most common would be dizziness, anxiety, constipation, insomnia, heart palpitations, anxiety, to say that, dizziness. And then when they give really high doses to older people, they say, oh, it causes falls. Yeah, because it eats up their magnesium so much they get dizzy.
Mm.
Because there are studies that say, oh, high dose of magnesium, like they give a bunch all at once. And to older people, they say it causes falls and fractures. And they're trying to say it makes your bones soft. No, it causes them to get dizzy and fall because it eats up their magnesium. And by falling, they have more fractures.
Mm.
So, so basically, if you take high dose D3 and you start having any problems right off the bat, it means you're magnesium deficient. And you need to stop and then try to load up the magnesium a bit for a week or two, maybe more, until you can start taking the D3 again without the symptoms. It's very hard to reverse a magnesium deficiency. And let's say you're magnesium deficient and you think, oh, well, if I take this magnesium pill with my D3, I'm going to be fine. No, it takes that magnesium pill's not going to fill your tank very fast. So even if you're taking high dose D3 and magnesium together right off the bat, you can still get magnesium deficiency symptoms triggered.
Mm.
It'd be smarter to like take magnesium, boost your magnesium for 2 weeks to a month, and then start the high dose D3. If you fear that you're magnesium deficient, then you could avoid that problem. So, and then vitamin K2 deficiency, it doesn't usually kick in until someone's been taking like, the only time I've seen hypercalcemia in people, too much calcium in the blood, taking D3, it's people that are taking like 300,000, 400, 500,000 a day for 3 months to 6 months with almost no K2.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe in the first sign is they lose their appetite and they start losing all sorts of weight. And then they end up in the emergency room, and end up on an IV because their blood calcium goes way up. But that doesn't kick in till maybe 4 or 5 or 6 months after you've been on your high dose D3 for a while. So,
And it's
you
really
could,
high. It's like over 100,000, right?
yeah, like the only 2 cases I've heard of, one guy was taking it because it made his ankylosing spondylitis pain feel better. And then he got used to it and then kept boosting the dose once it lost its effect, kind of like a heroin addict. You got to take more and more. And so he was up to 600,000 a day. His wife had contacted me. He hadn't read my book. She finally read the book and contacted me and said, "Oh no, he hadn't been taking any vitamin K2." And so his hypercalcemia kicked in right around month 5. And there was a similar story with a guy taking 300,000 a day. Some nurse told him D3 was good, but he didn't read my book. His wife contacted me too. And he about 2 or 3 months in, taking 300,000 a day, he started losing weight and felt nauseous, just thought he had a stomach bug. Didn't stop the D3, just kept taking it, and ended up in the emergency room had to get an IV to dilute the calcium out of his blood. So, but those 2 guys were idiots. I mean, not idiots, but ignorant, because they hadn't read my book. But those are the only 2 cases. I've heard from thousands of people with taking high dose D3, and those are the only 2 cases of hypercalcemia I've heard.
Yeah.
Hypercalcemia I have heard of.
It's like
So
vitamin
not,
D toxicity. Vitamin D toxicity is very, very, very rare. Like, this is what people are afraid of. Oh, I'll take, like, is 4,000 not too high? Is 6,000 not too high? This is what they're being told. It's just so rare to be toxified by vitamin D. It's
well, yeah. It's like saying, "Oh my God, 10 minutes of sunbathing." You can calm them down real quickly if you just convert it to sunbathing equivalents. Then
Did you see the study released over the summer? I can get it for you if you want, because I had shared it with my people, basically showing that high dose vitamin D helps to push excess calories, like when someone's on a high calorie diet, into the muscles to be used for energy rather than stored as fats. And that was done on 10,000 plus international units.
yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. Basically, D3 is a signal to your body that winter is over and it's time to get out of the cave, quit hibernating, and run around and get things done. And there's plenty of resources. You're not going to starve to death. That's basically how I look at D3. It's nature's signal that winter is over. So it would not surprise me that your muscles are getting a lot more energy.
Yeah,
Because
it's somewhat of a, I suppose, metabolic signaling factor. There's if you know Dr. Ray Peat and a few other great doctors have spoke a lot about the connection between vitamin D and the thyroid. And actually, Dr. Ray Peat refers to vitamin D3 as being a thyroid hormone of sorts, in that it can stimulate thyroid and the metabolism. And I have always kind of, I suppose, connected the dots. And, people talk about seasonal affective disorder a lot. So here in Canada and then back in my home country, Ireland, we get really dark winters. And hypothyroid is prevalent in both up here in Canada and in Ireland. And a lot of people will complain of seasonal affective disorders. And what's the recommendation for most of these people? Well, it's, are you getting enough vitamin D? And part of that, it's proposed, and even Dr. Broda Barnes spoke about this in his hypothyroid book, it's that people experience seasonal affective disorder because thyroid function lowers in the winter. And part of that is because we're not getting enough vitamin D. So when we take the vitamin D in the winter, it helps with our seasonal affective disorder because it helps improve thyroid function.
well, yeah, it's interesting. When I wrote that first book, which I didn't know that much about everything, the red covered book, I did look at the symptoms of thyroid deficiency. And I go, fatigue, this, that, depression. And I said, wait a minute. the thyroid deficiency symptoms are the same as D3 deficiency symptoms.
Hmm.
And so I started looking at, and then I looked into D3 versus thyroid, and there's a lot of crosstalk between the D3 receptor and the thyroid receptor, and even like one part of a thyroid receptor can pair up with one part of a D3 receptor or something like that. But so they're completely interconnected. So that's what I've figured out. I mean, just on a cursory basis in my first book, it looked like I was looking at the vitamin D3 deficiency symptom lists. They're both the same
It, it
for the most
goes
part.
it goes well though with your hibernation theory too, because that has been proposed by these same doctors that this is why animals go into hibernation mode and they put on a lot of fat in the winter as part of their survival mechanism, but they slow down thyroid function so the calorie expenditure is way lowered.
Oh yeah, the bears, the female bears in the fall before hibernation, their D3 levels drop dramatically, and then they just start eating like crazy to get ready for hibernating, and they gain like 70% of their body weight. And so I think that same thing's happening in humans when your D3 is chronically low all the time. Your body just basically thinks there's a winter famine coming and says, you better eat, get ready, famine's coming. Mm-hmm. And it makes everyone voraciously hungry. And it causes carbohydrate cravings. So my mother's quite heavy set. And, I said, Mom, all you got to do is just eat a cheese omelet every morning for breakfast. Keep eating that until you're full. She goes, no, I can't. I have to have my sugar and my ice cream. She just can't. She's like a junkie. But I think it's a D3 deficiency. And the breakthrough that watching you and Georgie talk that I just came up with yesterday, there's a lot of facts that, they're out there that people see, and they, kind of like that. Oh, women, the women's ALS ratio to men is 1-4 until age 60. Then it's 1-1. You look at it, and it doesn't really click, and then one day it clicks. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a set of facts out there that everyone looks at and just goes, oh, that's interesting. But for me, yesterday it clicked when I was arguing with AI about Georgie's idea that PUFAs are causing obesity. I was trying to disprove that. And then all of a sudden I was throwing these interesting facts out to AI, and all of a sudden it just clicked. So it has to do with obesity and D3. So what I threw into AI was, I was searching. I wanted to give us some more proof that D3 was that people that live at the equator, when they move north up here, they get sick, right? Because if they got black skin, they're not making a lot of D3 up here, but they were making a lot down at the equator. And so I looked up what happens to Africans when they move from the equator up to North America. And to my surprise, they are much healthier than the local black population for at least 10 to 15 years. Mm. I said, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. And then they should get sick. And then I started remembering some other facts. One was, if they give a single large dose of vitamin D to a baby, it protects that baby from diabetes for 31 years with no other additional vitamin D3. Mm. I mean, how is that possible? And then another thing was they did a Scandinavian study where they said women who had taken vitamin D any time in their lives, not even in the last 10 years, had a 68% reduction in breast cancer. Mm. I go, wait a minute, what's going on here? Apparently, just a single dose of vitamin D3 is actually going into your DNA and flipping all your genes on and off. And it stays that way for 10 years. And it's like, you can just take a single dose, and then it's going to affect you for 30 years for diabetes. They found that the moving from Africa to North America effect wears off after 10 to 15 years. And then the black population in America that's been here for 10 or 15 generations, they have like way higher levels of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, everything, autoimmune diseases. And, they're trying to say, oh, it's inequality, it's because of their low socioeconomic situation. No, what happens is after about 10 or 15 years, the D3 protection wears off. Just like, and then their D3 levels get real low and their DNA gets rewired to think that they're living in a famine condition. And this is much longer term stuff than doctors have ever thought of before. Mm-hmm. Another thing about D3, they found people taking D3, it reversed their DNA methylation age by 2.7 years if you take enough. Mm-hmm. So there's more to vitamin D3 than I thought. I thought I knew everything, but I just uncovered a whole new can of worms. I don't think any other there's nobody talking about this right now. This is the first time it's been out in public.
You would you'll love Dr. Jack Cruz, who I've introduced you to now. It's so like your work and his work, you cross paths so much. Once you get into his work, you'll really, and maybe I can set up like a group call sometime. But one idea
I heard he's really cranky.
You didn't hear that from me.
No. I've heard it around. That's what people are saying.
Around town. One thing he says though is and you'll find this interesting, he's always been adamant that people who live along the equator can tolerate carbohydrates more than people who live at a northern latitude, and that's should be a consideration for nutritionists or people prescribing different nutrition protocols, that depending on where your client or patient lives, that's a consideration in putting together the protocol, because if you're not getting that UV and vitamin D dosing, then you're less able to tolerate carbohydrates. But then that puts me in a bit of a catch-22 up here north, because, well, it's cold and dark all the time. And now going into winter, there's more issues with thyroid than there would be in the summer. So I still need to make sure my clients are getting some carbs to support thyroid and conversion. But now I'm thinking if I just make sure they're getting adequate vitamin D, that may be enough to carry us through the winter. What do you think of that?
Yeah, that's basically, you're living at the equator if you're taking a certain amount of D3. It's the same as living at the equator, except you're not getting the UV B rays, but most of the genes, most of the effects of D3 just come from D3. And I looked it up, and there's only like 20 genes that need UVB to be activated, and that aren't activated by vitamin D3. I didn't really study what those genes are. Maybe they're probably just DNA repair genes. I don't know. So there's only like 20 genes that need UVB. Although I saw Dr. Berg's video on, so that he's interviewing this guy that's investigating sunlight for health. And it kind of blew me away. There's like a whole nother thing besides vitamin D. There's like, if you shine a bright enough light in front of a human, you could actually see through the human. You could turn him opaque. I mean, if it was bright enough. Probably an atom bomb or something. And
he wasn't talking about Irish people, was he? Because we're pretty translucent.
Yeah, see through skin almost. But oh no, and as far as Irish goes, D3. When you go up you get away from the equator, either further north or south, the incidence of depression goes up, and along with that, the incidence of alcoholism goes up. So it can kind of explain the situation with the
No,
Irish.
we just like having fun. There's no connection there. We're just a fun
Well, no, I mean,
people.
if you're not getting much, if you're not getting a lot of sun, that depression kicks in, or else the alcoholism, because there's the same latitude effect for alcoholism too, along with depression,
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
and then yeah, some of the great Irish writers obviously were depressed. It's like some of their, well, no, just some of their stuff is dark but good.
Yeah, Dracula. No, it's
And
true
then
though,
so
because hypothyroid is very, very prevalent in Irish people and even goiter. And from my experience, like I grew up there and all my family's still back there. Most people, most Irish people are one, they're not like very forward on taking care of their health, and most people underutilize vitamin D. And out of a whole year, we probably get a week or two of sun, and it's still raining in the sun. So we don't get
yeah,
a lot of sun at all, unless you're going to do tanning beds or something. And I mean, obviously, not
right.
everybody's doing that.
Well, you get further north up to like Finland, where they're almost as white as the abominable snowman, because but they've tested some people there are starting to evolve just high D3 levels without even getting sun. Like somehow their body's making it.
The
Like because
fish, maybe the cod, the liver, fish
I
liver.
don't know, it could be. It seemed like it was a strange anomaly. Like the small group of people, they had high D3 levels even when they should have been deficient or something. It might have been the fish. I don't know, but it sounded like they were small groups of like really white people are evolving the ability to make vitamin D on their own, kind of like a wild salmon. They make vitamin D.
Hmm.
So,
Maybe because there
um,
are some of these very northern um
yeah, it was
countries.
just a weird study. I just threw that in there because it was kind of a weird fact that I haven't really looked into it. It was just my initial reaction to it, but
Yeah,
maybe it'll pop up in the future.
maybe because I was
But
going to say some of these northern countries, they don't get darkness at all. It's just bright 24/7.
yeah, well, yeah, the Scandinavian countries are smart. They put a lot of D3 into their foods and stuff. Yeah, there was a one study in Finland. They used to give babies 2,000 IU's of D3 a day. That was their recommendation, and they cut it down to 400. I guess when they heard from the U.S. The Institute of Medicine
Health, yeah.
should be should be the Institute of Malpractice. But when they cut their IU's down to 400, these kids, the type 1 diabetes skyrocketed. Like there's all these diabetic kids, like from an early age, that had to go on insulin. Like, and then there's another study that kids that are just getting type 1 diabetes, if they give them like a high dose D3, that's in one of my books. If you give them high dose D3 and fish oil, it stops the progression of the type 1 diabetes in its tracks. But
Mm.
getting back to this obesity thing and it turns out your genes get reset by this sun exposure. Maybe just even one time, like go live out in the sun for a summer in the sun live in the sun for the whole summer and get tan. Apparently that resets your genes for maybe 10 years. I mean, it can. And I'm not saying that you don't have to take vitamin D, but it seems to, it has all these protective effects. It basically deactivates what I think is what's happening is it deactivates what I call the human hibernation syndrome in my first book,
Mhm.
where when your D3 levels are low, evolution thinks you're in the middle of a winter famine. So it wants to keep you cave bound in the cave. It doesn't want you running around in the snow, burning all your energy, and you starve to death. So
Mm.
it's basically forcing you to stay inside. It's kind of a crude form of hibernation. So it gives you autoimmune diseases like MS or lupus or Crohn's, psoriatic stuff that would make you say, I don't want to go out and run around. And then And then when the sun comes back and your D3 levels start to go back up, all of a sudden my autoimmune diseases are cured. Time to run around and go hunt and this and that. And that's what I call the human hibernation syndrome in my first book. Mm. And it's basically all the common diseases probably evolved in the past to help us not go extinct during a very cold period. And that would explain why in diabetes, your blood sugar goes way up, and that's usually associated with glaucoma, which is large increase in eye pressure inside the eye. And then also high blood pressure is associated with salt, and they think salt is causing it. I think it's actually salt cravings are associated with this syndrome. It's not that salt causes high blood pressure. It's that when you have high blood pressure, you crave salt because all these things are doing the same thing. They're meant to protect you from freezing to death. And how is that possible? It turns out sugar will lower the freezing point of your blood. It's the same as putting the antifreeze in your car is ethylene glycol. It's just basically sugar water. And it freezes at a lower temperature. So the diabetes makes your blood freeze at a lower temperature. And then high blood pressure, it turns out a German high school student corrected me on this. It does lower the freezing point of water, but an infinitesimal amount. I thought high blood pressure would lower the freezing point of water, but it would make no difference. A German high school student pointed that out to me in an email when he read my book. And so I went back and looked at it, but it turns out high blood pressure causes more gas to dissolve in your blood, CO2. So, and that lowers the freezing point of your blood. So I know this, I know how to explain this because I used to put like a bottle of Coca-Cola, a plastic bottle, in the freezer, and I would get it just cold enough where I see little ice crystals forming. I wouldn't let it freeze. And then when I'd take it out, I'd unscrew the top and all the gas would come out, and then the whole thing would turn into an icy slush, like turn into ice. So that's when the pressure was released. All of a sudden, the freezing point goes from low to high. So the blood pressure and the sugar in your blood are basically, it's antifreeze. And then the high eyeball pressure, the fluids in your eyes don't circulate very much. So they're going to be much more susceptible to freezing. And so, but when you boost the pressure in your eye, it dissolves more gases in the eye, and that lowers the freezing temperature of your eyeballs. So all these things are geared towards preventing you from crystallizing in the winter.
Dying. Yeah. Weren't you?
Go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, weren't you putting vitamin D drops in your eye at one stage?
Yeah, that was in my book. I just wanted to see what would happen because I had one eye was a little more nearsighted than the other. Or no, they were both a little nearsighted. And then I decided just to do one eye and see what happens. And I said, I can always live with one eye. So if something went wrong, I said, I'll see what happens. But I did it for 2 weeks and I didn't notice anything, and I stopped. But now my mother's, she's got glaucoma. I had AI whip up a recipe for vitamin D3 eye drops. So she's actually going to have her ophthalmologist make those for her.
We'll have to keep you posted on that.
Yeah, now there's weird complications with diabetes. That I've been studying this human hibernation syndrome quite a bit, and it turns out there's sex differences in diabetes, which can be explained if the woman was meant to stay in the cave and the man was supposed to go out and hunt and bring back food. So that's going to be in my upcoming book. But all the sex differences and all these various autoimmune diseases, they all fit this category. Like, for example, men are more likely to get their feet amputated and hands amputated from diabetes. But for my and then women are more likely to have like and then men are more likely to have like blood vessels pop in their eyes and blood come out in the eyes during diabetes because it causes blindness. But women don't get those things as much. But I was thinking, well, if the woman's going to stay at home in the cave with the baby and the man's going to go out and hunt and bring back some meat, he's got to protect his feet from frostbite. So that's probably where all the sugar, a lot of sugar is concentrating in the feet and the hands and the ears and the eyes. And that lowers the freezing temperature, but it doesn't happen to women. Like they get different symptoms. And it works for every disease like Crohn's, lupus, you name it. So I forgot all the different differences, but when you put all the puzzle pieces in place, every disease, every version of an autoimmune disease that a woman gets, it's something that's going to make her unable to like run around. And then what men get, it's almost always something that's going to protect. Like, but women get fatigue a lot more than men. And for men, all the diseases they get are things that are going to protect them from freezing. So they stay tuned for that. That was kind of, so all our diseases are pretty much artifacts, probably from 900,000 years ago. They say human beings were almost wiped out during a super cold ice age about 900,000 years ago. And there was only, they think there's a breeding population of only about 1,000 people for about 100,000 years. And because everyone was dying from being frozen to death. And so we all evolved from those thousands. And it turns out like we get a lot of our disease genes from the Neanderthals and Denisovans, the different humanoids that we could. They're not different species really because we could interbreed with them. They were basically just extreme races of humans, but we get a lot of our human hibernation genes from, like we get Crohn's disease from them and diabetes, and I think we get drug addiction from the Denisovans. And turns out drug addiction is the same thing. It's basically carbohydrate addiction.
Yeah.
But we've found different ways to ring the buzzer. Back then they were eating like bears before the winter, like, oh, carbohydrates, like my mother. Ice cream on top of the pecan pie. I need another piece. So that's a gene we got from the cavemen, and I think it was basically we know to fatten up before it's time to hibernate. And then people used to tell me, oh, hey, that's crazy. Humans never hibernated. And I said, well, there's still a dog that hibernates. And then a study came out, 5 or 10 years ago. They found evidence of humans' remains in caves in Spain that was like 400,000 years old. And their bones showed evidence of hibernation. Like they had like a seasonal, whatever changes in their bones. They could tell they were hibernating. So yes, humans did used to hibernate long ago.
Yeah.
So
and our genetics have not changed very much since then.
Yeah. So, I mean, you'd think all these genes would have been, why we have all these weird disease genes like that for no reason. But I think they're all left over from, they actually kept us alive back in the cold days.
You have mentioned autoimmune diseases a few times, and autoimmune diseases are prevalent now, and now we can put forward a strong argument that it's probably a vitamin D deficiency. And Dr. Jeffrey Dash, who was my last podcast guest, he specifically mentions that you can reverse nearly all autoimmune issues with high dose vitamin D.
Oh, well, actually all of them. Yeah. I mean, just take Dr. Coimbra. Have you heard of him? He's the Brazilian doctor. He's the one who started this whole thing. He had a patient that had, what did he have? He had some kind of disease. And so Dr. Coimbra said, well, why don't you take some extra D3 and we'll see what happens. But he also had vitiligo. That's where patches of the skin are white, depigmented. He just for fun, he just out of the blue was giving this one patient like 30,000 IUs a day of D3 to see if it would help with some other issue. And after about 2 months, all of a sudden he noticed the guy's vitiligo patches had grown in normally, like the pigmentation came back. And he goes, wow, that's amazing. And then he goes, I wonder if that would work on MS. And then he tried it on MS patients, and he goes, he put them on high dose, and he's curing like 95% of them are cured with high dose D3. Then he's tried it on people with lupus and psoriasis. There's all these before and after pictures. So that's where the whole thing got started, with high dose D3 for MS. I discovered it accidentally on my own with that 20,000. So he and I were both kind of discovering it at the same time. High dose D3, me on myself, and he with his patients. And then there's a whole bunch of Facebook groups that'll say Coimbra Protocol. It's COIMBRA. And they're all talking about, oh, I cured this, I cured that. A lot of them are MS. And it's cured every autoimmune disease that he's tried it against. And then I got an email from a guy with a really weird disease called, PSC. Poly something sclerotic core. Oh God, I can't even remember. It's polycystic sclerotic chorangia or something. Basically what it is your immune system attacks the bile duct that goes from your liver to your gallbladder.
So is it polycystic sclerosing adenoma?
No, that's a cancer, but it's the last word is a C. It's a chorianoma, CHO. But people that have ulcerative colitis sometimes go on to develop this also. PSC. You want me to find the name? Hold on. They just call it PSC. You don't have to try to remember it. Let me find it.
Primary sclerosing cholangitis?
That's it. All right. So he wrote me, he says, yeah, the doctors, all these people that get this, there's no cure for it. And all the doctors say, yeah, well, we'll keep you going long enough, and then you're going to have to get $1 million liver transplant. So they're selling lots of liver transplants. And so this guy emails me. He says, oh, you got to add this to your list of autoimmune diseases cured by high dose D3. And I said, what is it? He goes, it's PSC. Like, I've had symptoms for 8 or 9 years, and I was going to have to get a liver transplant. I was always a little too scared to take more than 25,000 units a day, even after I read your book. But I said, what the hell, I'm going to go for it. And he boosted his, D3 finally up to 60 and then to 80,000. And he said within 3 months, all his ulcerative colitis cured and the PSC cured. All the numbers went back to normal, and he feels great. And he's super pissed off that he didn't know about this for 8 or 9 years. And I said, well, they want to sell you a liver transplant. And then that's $1 million. So I set up another Facebook group called PSC easily cured, something like that. So if anyone has PSC, they should check out that Facebook group. I've got his email in there. You can email the guy if you want. But yeah, I get stories like that all the time. Like some lady emailed me from New Zealand that her husband had terminal Wegener syndrome, where your immune system attacks your blood vessels, and his was going to his kidneys or something. He was gonna or liver. But she read my book, and he was taking 100,000 a day, and all of a sudden the doctors called him the miracle patient. Said, "Oh my God, he's got 40% of his kidney or liver function back," and that never happens. So basically, I can tell you, it's going to cure every autoimmune disease for the most. I mean, it's got to be a rare exception. It's going to cure everything.
There's a
So
connection between PSC actually and low thyroid function, which would bring us back to what we were talking about, D3 being a thyroid hormone of sorts. But that's the one thing that holds people back, and I hope this conversation has opened some eyes now, is what that guy said. He was afraid to go higher. It's the
yeah,
fear that holds people back
those
from getting
scary
better.
numbers. Those scary numbers. Yeah, those doctors, they know how to scare you.
Right.
Well, I
Well,
mean, most doctors don't know. I mean, the conspiracy is up at the top, like the editors of like Nature, Science, JAMA, New England Journal of Medicine. If you watch a Bruce Hollis's YouTube interview with this German guy, he explains he tried to do a study with 4,000 units of D3 for prostate cancer patients, and the FDA said, "Oh my God, this is so dangerous," and they had to go through like 10 committees to see if it was going to be safe, and they had to put a black box warning on it, and then he found out 4,000 IUs a day for basically the cancer doctors. If you come in with a prostate cancer that's not really growing too much, they do a wait and see type thing, and they come back in a year if it's growing. If it's not growing, that's fine. If it's growing, we'll consider some therapies. And so he wanted to give one group of the wait and see groups 4,000 IUs of D3 a day, and the other group got nothing. And when they came back in a year later, Hollis noticed, oh my God, like the 4,000 IUs a day group, their a lot of their tumors disappeared, a lot of them shrunk, and the people that didn't get the D3 had, they had the expected outcome of, growing tumors. And it was like if this had been a drug, he says this would be a huge blockbuster drug. Like, my God, we're saving the world. And 4,000 actually is too low a dose. I know people have cured their terminal prostate cancer taking 50,000 a day. That's in my cancer book. Um, but and there's a lot of cases of people curing their prostate cancer with high dose D3. There's a lot of anecdotes.
yeah.
So there's never going to be a study on it because it doesn't make any money. All right, so the bottom line is Bruce Hollis tried to get this report, this study published in like all the good journals, like so-called good journals like JAMA. They all rejected it. And it turns out they eagerly accept any studies that portray vitamin D3 in a bad light.
Mm-hmm.
But if anything, any studies that show that vitamin D3 is good, they will not touch it with a 10-foot pole, or they'll make you like revise it so that it looks like it's statistically insignificant.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's going on. This conspiracy is up at the top. It's big pharma and these science journals and some researchers like that Manson at Harvard. They should all be rounded up and put in prison with Dr. Fauci.
Well, these are the same people that told us all to lock down while leaving the strip clubs and the liquor stores open.
Oh yeah. Well,
There's
and
actually there's a
yeah,
funny video
that,
I need to send. There's a funny video of these Irish comedians. I'm gonna send it to you. You'll laugh, and it's basically the first coldest day of winter in Ireland, and everyone's panicking. And it's like, shut down everything. First sight of snow, shut down the schools, the post offices, everything. And the guy goes, well, what about the pubs? Ah, sure, it's just a little bit of snow. Let's leave the pubs open. So I'm going to send it to you. It's hilarious.
well, of course, there's the essential functions, that have to go on.
Yeah, let's not be crazy. Like, uh,
Whiskey, and stripper poles.
and I want to just circle back to magnesium before we finish up now. We've been talking for ages. But one other thing I heard that I know will intrigue some listeners, I hear you mentioned in your book that low vitamin D is also associated with peanut allergies. Is that true? Because a lot of my clients' kids have peanut allergies.
Yeah, yeah. I used to have seasonal allergies. Like they kicked in my 20s. A lot of stuff kicked in my 20s. Like I started working in an office like 7 days a week. I was a workaholic. I never got any sun. And then all of a sudden, I started getting all these vitamin D3 deficiency things. I didn't know anything about it at the time. And one of them, I got an adult onset hay fever in the summer. I never had it when I was a kid. And every summer when that white fluff, at least here in St. Louis or Chicago, when you see white fluff like little things floating in the air, I just I would be sneezing like 20 times in a row. I'd be crying. I had to take whatever that. There's a really good allergy medicine. I forgot the name of it. It's been so long since I took it.
Not
But
Benadryl,
I would
it's something else.
no. It's the it used to be prescription, and then you could get it over the counter.
Claritin?
It'll come to me, but I used to like try to see how bad it was, like how many of these pills how many days I had to take these pills to see how bad my allergy was. And it was like, 10 to 14 days because I didn't like taking pills.
Mhm.
So usually about 14 days a year, I'd have to take these pills. But when I went on my high dose D3 1 year experiment, after the first year, like the number of pills I took was reduced by 90%. I only had to take one pill for that summer.
Mhm.
My allergy was down by 90%. And then by the second year, the allergy was completely gone. I haven't had them since. And then, and then I remember when I was a kid in school back in the 60s and 70s, that we never heard of peanut. No one had ever heard of peanut allergies. It's unheard of. And so, it has to be a vitamin D3 deficiency related. So I bet it could be cured with high dose D3 supplementation.
Mm.
Just reset the DNA. I bet a year of high dose D3 or 2 years would cure peanut allergies. I'll bet you that right now. You want to bet?
I'm not a
How
betting.
much?
I might be Irish, but we don't bet. Don't gamble.
And it's probably, what else is gluten intolerance has gone up. So basically, when you're D3 deficient, your immune system has a broken pair of glasses. It can't see things clearly. So that's all of a sudden peanuts are dangerous. That's what your immune system thinks, and because it can't see right, and it might go and attack your nerves. Oh, there's something that's bad. But you give the kids a lot of D3, and all of a sudden their immune system has glasses again. But yeah, given the fact that I'd never heard of peanut allergies probably until the mid 80s or early 90s, that means it has to be a D3 deficiency related. And you could probably cure those kids with high dose D3 for 2 years. Tell all your friends
I will.
with kids with, yeah, give them the adult equivalent of, let's say, 50,000 a day for 2 years. 50,000 a day for 2 years. I was taking much higher doses for like 2 years. I was taking 75,000 a day. So during my first experiment.
Just we'll wrap up now in a few minutes, but we mentioned already how vitamin D influences body weight and obesity and diabetes and all that. Magnesium also is a key player in that too, because you need magnesium to make ATP. You need magnesium for methylation. You need magnesium for nerve function. So how important is magnesium for weight management in your opinion?
That's a good question. I haven't thought about that. So I'm looking in my mind at that big list of magnesium deficiency symptoms, and
Well, if we were just
being
looking at
over.
like if we were just looking at ATP and energy production.
Yeah, the one thing another very common symptom of magnesium deficiency is extreme fatigue. And that makes sense because your body makes ATP. That's the gasoline your engine runs on. if you don't have ATP, you're going to die, and the engine's going to stop. And that's all the energy that you get in your body is pretty much is all ATP. And your body needs one molecule of magnesium to create each molecule of ATP. The magnesium binds to ADP. I mean, that's adenosine diphosphate. It means it's got two phosphates, and the magnesium attaches to it, and it takes it to this little machine that puts another phosphate on there. So it becomes adenosine triphosphate. And basically the phosphates are like negatively charged magnets that want to get away from each other. So, and the magnesium and this little machine jam those all together and kind of lock them together. And the way your ATP works is when it goes up to it, some part of your cell needs energy. It clicks a switch on the side of the ATP and it opens it up, and the negative charge shoots that one phosphate out. So it's basically humans we're running on almost magnetic energy, not really electrical. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of interesting. I always thought that was interesting.
And
I didn't know that.
Magnesium also helps with insulin resistance too.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then basically your body makes about 100 pounds of ATP every day because it's always being recycled. And then, so the first step and the other symptoms of magnesium deficiency are insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. So like insulin resistance starts when your magnesium is low because the insulin receptors don't work well without magnesium. And then, so they start malfunctioning and not giving the signal off if you don't have enough magnesium. Then your body starts making a lot more insulin, and then to overcompensate for the insensitivity of the receptors, and eventually the cells that make insulin, they need magnesium and GABA to properly make insulin, and eventually those cells break, and then you'll need to then you've got type 2 diabetes where you'll have to get insulin injections when it gets really bad because you stop making insulin. But probably all that can be prevented if you've got enough magnesium.
How are people going to know? I'm sorry to interrupt. Are we just looking at the symptom picture? Because it's very, very hard to test magnesium just like it is hormones.
Well, yeah, no, it's easy. Actually, everyone has to go in and get every tissue in their body, tissue type biopsied. So yeah, I know a doctor that's doing that. But if you don't want to do that,
send me his name.
But
Does
if you
he
don't want to do that,
too?
yeah, give me. I want 100 different biopsies all over my body. Yeah, so that's the only way they could figure it out where you're deficient. So really, the blood test tells you nothing because the blood magnesium is tightly controlled. It varies in a narrow range, and your body keeps it there, or else if you get out of whack, you can die real quick or you get real dizzy. So the blood grabs magnesium from the body. So the body, it doesn't care about the body. Your first goal is blood magnesium stays the same. So all the deficiencies lie in the tissues, but the doctors look at this blood test, say, oh, your magnesium's okay. And then, but that tells them nothing. So, the best way without getting a tissue biopsy is just to look at that long magnesium deficiency symptom list. And if you got one or two of them, then you're probably magnesium deficient. And that's as good as the other way. They give you a big injection of magnesium. They collect your urine for 24 hours, or they can feed you a lot of magnesium and they collect your urine for 20. If you don't excrete any magnesium, it means your body sucked it all up and you're really deficient. Mm-hmm. So the proper way to dose, if you want to correct your magnesium deficiency, is you just keep taking magnesium throughout the day, maybe twice a day or 3 times a day. And keep boosting the dose until you get diarrhea. And then if it doesn't go away in a day or two, cut back just to the point where you have loose stools. That's your correct dose for taking magnesium, and then take it for at least a year, maybe a year and a half. That's how long it takes to correct magnesium deficiency in all your cells.
You
There you
know,
go.
Georgie discusses testing hormones in the tissues, and he has a company, Idea Labs, and they do tissue testing, but they're doing it for hormones in the fingernails, toenails, and hair, and maybe eyelashes, maybe.
Huh.
Um, I wonder if he would do magnesium because we, of course, hair mineral tests will test magnesium, but he specifically is focusing on testing hormones in the tissues because that's where most hormones are stored.
Yeah, but probably he needs to invent some kind of X-ray machine that lights up your magnesium or something. Like I don't know, but until then, you're got to do it this way.
Okay, well,
So
Jeff, this has been a pleasure. I have one last question for you.
no, no more questions.
You'll
All
love this.
right, one last.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you
Oh,
tell
go
me?
to tell them to go to my YouTube channel and start looking at my podcast and liking my songs. I'm doing AI music now. I got a song about cancer and several about vitamin D and
I
one about
shared
COVID.
I shared the one about vitamin D in my Facebook group the other day because it made me laugh and people loved it. And I like to call you an AI music producer. That's your new title. But
Yeah, it's like with AI now, all the instruments and the bands and the singers, they all become just instruments because the Beatles were successful probably because they had a great producer called George Martin. So like he would say, no, that doesn't sound right. No, no, you got like a conductor. So this could be the age of the conductors with all this AI music
yeah, I've heard
instead of
that a lot of musicians gonna start losing their jobs.
yeah, just like yeah, a lot of conductors are gonna stand out and get their due respect.
So tell me, Jeff, why are there no fat people in Colorado?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. It's not really true, but it's relatively true. So if you look at the obesity map on go on to Google and type up U.S. obesity map, and you'll see different colors like what states are most obese. There's one state that stands out. It's Colorado. Nobody's, it's relatively speaking, nobody's fat in Colorado. And then I couldn't figure that out because when I wrote my COVID book, it turns out there was a big effect of anyone living near mountains that were north or south that block the sun part of the day and it lowers their D3 levels. And people that live next to north south mountain ranges, got hit much harder with COVID.
Mm.
And it happened in the Appalachian Mountains in the eastern US. Those are kind of lower level mountains, like 3,000 feet high. And they got really hammered with COVID. And then I looked at Colorado and nobody's getting COVID and nobody's fat. Oh, and they're fat in the Appalachian Mountains. The white people get fat over there because they live in the shadows of those mountains. But then the people in Colorado, they live in a lot of shadows of those big mountains, right?
Hmm.
So I'm thinking that doesn't make any sense. The people in Colorado should be fat and they should get COVID too. So this is a big conundrum. And I finally figured it out. And finally I said, oh, it turns out the higher you go up, the thinner the air is and the stronger the UVB light is. So once you get above like 7,000 feet, it's like every 1,000 feet you go up, you get about like 8% more UVB light. So even though they're getting a lot more shadows way up high in the mountains, they don't get as much sun. The sun they get is way stronger for producing containing UVB. So they get just an hour or two of a high mountain sun. It's going to generate a lot of vitamin D3. So that's why there's no fat people in Colorado.
I wonder, could that account for the Scandinavians as well that you mentioned because they're at higher altitude?
Oh yeah, that when you're high up, you get a lot more D3. The lower level air filters out a lot of UVB. So
Yeah.
yeah. If I didn't really look into that, but if they live up there on top of mountains, they probably wouldn't get hit with COVID. Yeah, and the people that did really the Swedes that got hit with COVID actually were mostly dark skinned immigrants. They weren't the regular Swedish people.
Mm.
I did a detailed study on the Scandinavian COVID situation. That's in my book. That book that you just showed, the Why Are There No Fat People in Colorado? It's actually the same book as 16 fascinating COVID and Spanish flu mysteries solved. Because I found out everyone that got COVID, where people that got COVID are the same people who are obese, and it's the same. It's the exact same thing, vitamin D3 deficiency. So it's the same book. It's just different topics.
It's
So
just
that's it. But that was when I figured that puzzle out. I patted myself on the back. That was very satisfying. Because for a couple of days, I'm like, why are the people not getting COVID in Colorado?
Mhm.
Because it ruined my whole book that I had written. Like something's wrong with my theory.
Mm.
And then I finally looked into the altitude effect on UVB light. I guess, that's it.
Well,
Bingo.
Jeff, this has been a joy. I will have you back on in the new year because we've more to discuss. If you're open to it, we'll just have to figure out the whole microphone, headphone situation there.
Yeah, this is cell phone, but I'm still
It
old
works.
old
It works.
school. I This is a flip phone. I don't even have a smartphone.
You're an
I've been
untraceable
waiting for
man.
I know I've been waiting for the perfect smartphone, but it hasn't been built yet. I want one that can fold out into a desk-sized computer with a keyboard, and
That
then
thing will
fold
be
back into
bloody
a phone.
huge to carry around. You need a bag for it.
Well, no, no, it's got to be foldable or something, or a little projector or something. But they haven't made it yet. So, because I do all my work on a PC,
Well, that's your
those
next
phones are.
AI mission, isn't it? To invent something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm limping along as right now, good enough. So, all right. Well, thank you
Jeff,
so much. It was so nice meeting you.
it was. Where can
I mean, oh, you
people
didn't get to.
find you?
Oh, yes, definitely. I've got a website where you can use the Search D3 Cure search engine. It's got like 1,000 people have written to me about their high dose vitamin D3 experiments for all different kinds of diseases, from blindness to even death. No, not really death.
They came back
That's
from the
permanent.
dead, like the guy
Yeah,
with
the
half a
D3
brain.
we tried D3 for death. We still haven't figured out how to do that one yet. But you can type in your disease in the search box, and you can see all these testimonials from real people that tried their own D3 experiments. It's got a bunch of great blog posts. It's jefftbowles.com. So it's jefftbowles.com. No spaces. And then if you want to see some other interviews on YouTube, I have a YouTube channel, Jeff T. Bowles. And then there's another problem. There's a guy named Jeff Bowles who's a terrible musician, but it's not me. And he puts all these
You're the
horrible
good
songs out there.
musician.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, when you search my name, you get this guy that he looks awful. I'm sorry. And he sings awful, but he's still, well, I hope he doesn't hear this. I don't want to offend him. Anyway, I'm going
I
to sue
think
him.
you already did.
Now I'm going to sue him. I'm going to copyright my name and sue him and make him get rid of that name. So
Well,
he
your
just ruins
books.
he ruins the YouTube search for Jeff Bowles. So oh well.
Well, hopefully I can help with it. But your books are also on Amazon and Audible, which is awesome because sometimes I'm too busy to read and all just listening is easier. So I'll share all the links. We'll have you back in the new year, hopefully. And thank you for your time. We did a good 2 hours there.